Hey everyone, John from ARTV. It's time for my most anticipated album review of the year, Green Day's Revolution Radio, their 12th studio album. If you guys are not aware, Green Day are my favorite band, and in preparation for Revolution Radio, I reviewed all of their albums. You can see the playlist linked in the description down below. If you missed any of those, you'd like to catch up on my thoughts on their previous efforts. Revolution Radio was kicked off by the lead single Bang Bang on August 11th, and believe me, my hype went through the roof. I was so ecstatic whenever they started teasing the single, and whenever the single sounded like some of their stuff like 21st Century Breakdown and American Idiot, you better believe I was on board. American Idiot is my favorite album of all time. If you guys are not aware, I just uploaded my review of that the other day. I was so excited to put that out there in the world. It means a lot to me, and with Revolution Radio, I'm honestly seeing some of those themes, but at the same time, I'm so happy that the guys are trying some new stuff as well. They're back down to a trio. Jason is no longer in this band. He stepped down to touring member once again, and that was a personal choice. He went through some issues with tonsil cancer, and now the three original members, Trey Cool, Billy Joe Armstrong, and Mike Dirnt, are here for this brand new studio album. How does it sound? What's going on lyrically? We're going to dive into all of that. I'm going to start with a brief overview, and then we're going to go track by track through Revolution Radio. That's not something that I normally do, but for a release as big as this, and I know you guys are expecting a lot from me in this review, believe me, we're gonna go into detail. It's great to see the guys coming back together and doing something that's just a project. They came back together and did a 12-song album. When was the last time they did that? It was Warning in 2000. That's over 15 years ago. They obviously had the over-the-top, so bombastic American Idiot, and then they took those tensions and stakes even higher with 21st Century Breakdown in 2009. And then, of course, they recorded 3 albums worth of material in 2012 with Uno, Dos, and Trey. I don't really want to get into that. That was kind of a misfire. I don't think it was a very good idea. They should have taken the best songs from each record and just put out one really great album instead of 3 ones that were mediocre, or else in Uno's case, even more mediocre. All of that to say that Revolution Radio is a very good thing for this band, I think. Just kind of getting back to the basics, making one album. We don't need 3. I don't know that there's Revolution Radio Part 2 or 3 around the corner. I hope not, but who knows? It's Green Day. They could do anything at this point. I love that there's a lot of different styles featured on this record. It features some of their most poppy material to date, like Still Breathing, a track about Billy Joe Armstrong's newfound sobriety. I think we all remember that kind of embarrassing but also on the nose meltdown at the iHeartRadio Music Festival 4 years ago, and this track was actually released on the 4th anniversary of that. It was kind of a weird time for Green Day. He checked into rehab after that, and like I said, in terms of the style on this record, it features some of that poppy material, like that and Youngblood, I would say, and then it's got some of the more 21st Century Breakdown leaning stuff like Bang Bang. Obviously, even in the bridge of that track and the guitar solo, I'm really hearing that. And even the opener, Somewhere Now, which is definitely Who inspired once again. I love that. It has these short little rapid fire bursts of energy. And then, of course, it kind of plays off to that more Western leaning feel. And towards the end of this record, we've got something more in the vein of like American Idiot with the track Forever Now, which contains multiple songs within one. And I have to praise just the playing, the musicianship here. It's fantastic once again. All of these guys are stepping up their game. Trey Cool features some of his best drumming all throughout, and his favorite song on this apparently is Somewhere Now, and I can easily see why. He's got some shifting drum patterns in there, adding in a few extra off-kilter beats, which sound fantastic, and Mike Dirnt actually took bass lessons before this record, and that's something that you're this far into your career and you're still willing to learn more about your craft. That just says something right there. You guys probably know that I only listen to 2 songs before an album comes out, and I heard the title track Revolution Radio, of course, and the lead single Bang Bang, and I was a little worried that they were just going to kind of go for an all-political album. They weren't really going to cover anything else. Yes, I read the Rolling Stone interview, but then again, sometimes bands will say things, and then later you'll listen to the album, and it'll be a little bit different in that final product, but that is not the case with Revolution Radio. I'm really excited to say that I'm enjoying all varying degrees of this. There's a few tracks that don't work quite as well for me, and we'll get into those in my track by track, so let's go ahead and start that now with Somewhere Now. Somewhere Now really caught me off guard the first time I listened to it. It kind of features a Western, dare I say, folk country leaning vibe that kicks things off. It has that waning guitar that just really sounds reminiscent of some older styles of country back when it actually was country and not just pop music convoluted by a lot of bros, but that's a different story. I love that Armstrong really incorporated that. That could have been inspired by that project that he did Foreverly with Norah Jones. Something that if you've never listened to, I would recommend giving it a chance. It's something that I never reviewed personally, reviewing, but I kind of regret not reviewing it at the same time. So maybe you guys will check it out, maybe you'll enjoy it, especially if you enjoy this track Somewhere Now. This one definitely, like I said a minute ago, features some of those Who-like inspired moments, just those little flares of energy that's like a sun flare just popping off, a little bit of fire, and those riveting guitar riffs. A lot of people are comparing it to Christie Road and Longview, and I don't really feel like that's justified just because it deals with kind of boredom and longing as well. There's a lot of Green Day songs that deal with that, so this one definitely stands on its own for me. Like I said, I love the instrumental here. I think it's fantastic. Trey's drumming is incredible. They really mix things up, and it's not what you would expect from a Green Day song. And then that outro, it's just chaotic. It's so noisy, and at the same time, we have heard things like this from Green Day before, but mixing in those different styles of restraint and then fury, it's relentless, and it's unlike anything I've ever heard from this band before. I'm excited to see what they could do with this style even more in the future. I have done track reviews on both Bang Bang and Revolution Radio. That will be in that Green Day playlist that I linked in the description down below, so I won't go into major detail, but I am going to talk about them a little bit again. First of those being Bang Bang, of course, a track that gets inside of the mind of a mass shooter, and that's absolutely crazy. A lot of this record is very, very topical, especially with what we're going through as a nation right now. All the violence, the hatred, the bigotry, and then, of course, some of the presidential election stuff. I mean, it's said in more or less words, but it's definitely implied in sections, but we'll get to that with some of our later tracks. On the song Bang Bang, Billy Joe gets into character mode, and I love whenever he does this. Obviously, he does a great job at that, getting inside of the head of these characters like St. Jimmy or Christian and Gloria on 21st Century Breakdown, and we see here that he still has the art of perfection for that, and I love the touches that they throw on here. It's very punky, fast-paced. It reminds me of some of their older stuff, like something off of Insomniac in terms of its explosiveness. I think this is a fantastic song, very well done from the band. I love the drumming from Trey on that, especially that drum fill at the end, right near the end of this track at least, and then of course the guitar work from Billy Joe. It's just so strong. It makes you want to get up, dance around, and just riot in the streets. No, not riot in the streets, I shouldn't say that. Peaceful protest in the streets. It took me a handful of listens to get into the title track Revolution Radio, but whenever it clicked, it absolutely did. And some of you guys were telling me in the comments of my track review, this one's even better than Bang Bang. I don't necessarily see that for myself, but I definitely now see where you're coming from. Revolution Radio has a striking guitar right off the bat. I love that it opens up with that. It's just kind of singled out there, and I love that it's in the spotlight, and then it comes crashing full circle with all of the rest of the guys here. And Billy's vocals on this one, they're kind of restrained, but in the chorus it obviously really explodes here, hits home like an atom bomb, and it's very political once again. That's something that I didn't know how I felt right at first, and of course it features those echoed vocals from Mike Dirnt in the background just kind of shouting, and I was like, are they going to do this on every track? And of course they did not, and this one really grew on me. The more I see it, the more I see it as why it was utilized. Part 4 of 12 on Revolution Radio is unfortunately my least favorite component to the record, and it's called Say Goodbye. I definitely understand and can get behind what the song is preaching, and it's talking about just basically sarcastically saying, say goodbye to all these people that you love. They're gonna be killed. They're gonna be taken away. Look at all this violence. Look at the police brutality, and look at just the black lives that are not looked at and just are ignored as a country. We kind of turned a blind eye to that. So basically, say goodbye and say hello to the cops and the government that are in control and can just shut down whatever movements they want to by using excessive force and violence. That was touched on in Revolution Radio, talking about cherry bombs and all these other things that are used basically to subdue people and keep them silenced. Billy Joe has talked about that many times in the past, and on Say Goodbye, I definitely get behind the message like I was saying. It's just the musicality of this track. It's kind of laid back, it's a slow burner, the chorus doesn't really hit as strongly as I think they wanted it to, and as a result, I find myself wanting to skip over it. This is the one that I actually listened to the most because I really wanted to like this track, but it just hasn't totally clicked with me yet. I don't think this is a bad song. I think it's just more middle of the road territory, and I think they could have done some things to improve it. The guitar is just kind of slow and sultry. The drumming on it seems a little bit just standard run-of-the-mill, and the bass line didn't really stand out to me that much either. Now we get to discuss one of my top favorites on this record, Outlaws. It clocks in as one of the longest songs here at over 5 minutes, but it definitely justifies that runtime. I see this track as just being about longing for your youth, the older times that you had, and sometimes you feel nostalgic. It's okay to flip through an old photo album sometime and see all the old memories. Maybe look at a ticket stub or something like that, and you're like, oh, I remember that concert, that time, or that trouble that we got into, and that's what I see Armstrong doing here, and I think that he looks back on these days with his buddies very, very fondly. Obviously, the three of them are so close. Billy and Mike have been together and inseparable since the 1980s, and I saw them going through a really rough time. It seemed like Mike was almost concerned about bringing back Green Day, especially if Billy was going to be in the state that he was in. He didn't want to get up on stage and just kind of ruin a beautiful thing that they had. But obviously Armstrong got his life together. Dirt's extremely happy for him. I love seeing these guys happy and healthy at this point. And now, obviously, we see that bond pouring out big time, calling back to these earlier days. And I love just how poetic this track is. It uses momentum as a big advantage to why this song works. It builds up during the verses and then has that huge sing-along chorus and then a searing guitar solo on it that isn't too big or dramatic, but at the same time it absolutely gets the job done. And I think I'm gravitating towards this one even more because it is very relatable. It's something that I don't feel like Green Day have really touched on all that much before, and it's just refreshing to see them bringing out a different side of them musically, combining some of the elements that we know and love, and then just some of the absolute best moments on this track come in the form of the payoff, and where Billy just gets the spotlight for a split second, like right before the second chorus on this thing. It breaks down to just his voice, and we see those piano twinkles and a couple of key hits there before the guitars crash back in. It's epic from a musical point of view, and obviously I love the lyrical content on it as well. I feel like I might overuse the term top favorite when talking about this record, but that's okay. I've got a ton of favorites here. There's so many songs that I love, and track number 6, Bouncing Off the Walls, is another one of those. I love the energy on this one. Just definitely more in the vein of older Green Day. This was one of the last songs that made the cut for Revolution Radio, and I can see why they wanted it on here. It's going to be a ton of fun to play live. I could definitely see people just jumping all around to this one, and I can see Billy going wild on stage while he performs it. It's fantastic. I don't know what else to say about it. The cutting guitar on it, I love how catchy it is all throughout, throwing in some hand claps in there as well. You see that on tracks like Youngblood as well, and they are a little bit poppy, but in the sense that it works so well for them, how could you say no to it? The guitars are scathing. They really turn them up loud, and the hook is one of the most energetic, enthusiastic, and earwormy on the entire record. I think that's why it's really standing out for me. I highly recommend you guys to check this one out. Even if you're not going to listen to the whole album, this is one of those standout cuts that you won't want to miss. Still Breathing is probably the poppiest thing that Green Day have ever put to tape, but damn it all to hell if it doesn't work so well. I never thought that I'd hear a synth line lining a Green Day song, but they pull it off. It's kind of subdued, and during the verses of this track, I like the light guitar and then the explosive chorus that really, you can't say anything else about it other than that it's an anthem. It's very empowering, and I feel like it's directly dealing with Billy Joe Armstrong's sobriety. It's okay. You don't always have to be humble, man. I know you're saying it's a little bit more ambiguous. It could be for anything, and he won't directly comment on it, but it's okay to brag a little bit. Being sober for 4 years is an amazing feat, and I am so proud of you. I'm loving the hell out of track number 8, Youngblood. This song is so much fun. Armstrong wrote it for his wife, Adrian, of 22 years, just the experiences and times that they've had, and obviously if you catch some of the references on here, he talks about Minnesota and Oakland. One of the best lines on this entire thing comes right before that final crashing in verse. He says, "But fuck you, I'm from Oakland." That's what she said to him, and I love that. It's just talking about the times that they went through, all of the fun, and some of the hard times they had as well. Obviously, there was a song on one of Green Day's older albums where he was trying to convince her to come up to Minnesota from Oakland, be with him, and she was being stubborn, and this song references it once again. I can see this as serving as like a fun live track, definitely a vivacious party song at times, and it's catchy as hell. Just so infectious all throughout. I love all the instruments here. The guitar line and the guitar solo that really just sends this thing over the moon for me, really make it work, and the pounding and driving drum force from Trey Cool is fantastic. I think my favorite opening on any of these songs comes in the form of Too Dumb to Die. This track just kind of sounds like somebody coming out of a hungover haze and then just getting back into the world, opening their eyes, and we see that from that slow, slurred opening, and then finally it crashes in, gets into it with these fast guitars, and I love the shifting guitar slides on this track. It really just stands out, especially during the chorus. It's super catchy, it's a lot of fun, there's a fast pace to the entire song, and it reminds me, obviously, once again, of some of Green Day's older material in the lyrical content, but at the same time, they're moving forward musically, and whenever you can combine those two forces, you've got a force of nature, a powerhouse to reckon with. Troubled Times is a really appropriate song for the United States right now. Obviously, we're going through all this presidential stuff, race relations, and it's really hitting it on the nose. It's exactly what we need, kind of a shot in the arm, if you will. And Troubled Times is kind of an ominous, slow-burning rocker. It's like a slow-lit fuse that slowly goes off and then explodes. There's a guitar solo on the track that sounds fantastic, obviously, but I think the lyrical content here is some of the best that Billy Joe has written in quite a while. Obviously, since 21st Century Breakdown, I think. American Idiot, anyone? Yeah, Forever Now reminds me of that. Like I mentioned earlier, I love that it has multiple songs and stylistic shifts within one track. And it's kind of like when you were a kid, you would get those big eggs and then they would have more eggs within another one and you would just keep finding more and more and it was little surprises here and there. That's what this track is for me. It's absolute gold. I love listening to it. It opens up with that awesome guitar and then almost instantly into the story of this track. And I love that they feature a reprise of Somewhere Now and they change up the lyrical content just a little bit. You might not hear it on the first few listens, but if you actually read along, pay attention, there's a line on that opening track Somewhere Now that says, "How did life on the wild side ever get so dull?" It change it up here and say, "How did it ever get so full?" And it seems like they kind of found a resolution here, and that's something that we don't see on some of the past Green Day albums, like 21st Century Breakdown, really no resolution there. American Idiot, no resolution. But here it almost seems like they've figured things out. And before we get into the final track, Ordinary World, this just once again kind of seems like a closer. They have a knack for nailing the closer before they actually get to the closer. So they've done it again here with Forever Now. I love the ambition that this track presents. It's the longest on the album, almost 7 minutes. And I love just how aggressive the guitars get whenever they're changing and then it fades back into Somewhere Now. It's just, I don't know how they do it sometimes. They pull off these seamless transitions and it's like, how are you guys so good at this? It's like Billy Joe came up with this song. It took him a while, according to the other guys in the band. And then one day he just came in and he was like, I've got it. Here it is, Forever Now. Ordinary World closes out this record. It's a very sweet tune. I think it's absolutely beautiful. I love that it goes out on a note like this. He wrote it for his film of the same name that he's starring in. And side note, are you guys wanting me to review that? I'm not sure if you are or not. If you're interested, let me know in the comment section down below. But like I was saying, I love that this is just a very serene and calming track. Obviously, it reminds me of someone very important in my life, my girlfriend, and this is a track that we knew was going to be special just from listening to the live recording of it and it coming out in the studio version. It did not disappoint. This is one of those songs that's just a reminder that even if you don't have everything in the world, you still have each other, or you still have something, whether it be a loved one, just somebody that you're in love with, a family member, a friend, whatever it is. Hold on to the good things in life. And I love how this song just kind of comes full circle, closes out the entire record. It seems like an appropriate kind of antithesis to Somewhere Now. That was dealing with boredom, and here he seems a little bit more content, and I like that we get that resolution. Revolution Radio did not disappoint, guys. There's a few songs that I don't think I'll come back to as much as others, but I'm rocking the hell out of this album. I cannot stop listening to it over and over again. It demands repeated listens. It's going to have a high replay factor, I think, and honestly, this is leagues above some of the stuff that they were doing on the trilogy. Don't get me wrong, there were great songs on that. It didn't age well, and you could probably tell. I should have known back then that those songs wouldn't age well, and I was a little bit too trigger happy with that. But with Revolution Radio, I made sure I gave it plenty of listens, time to settle in, and I am coming in with a rating of 4.5 out of 5 for the record. Thanks so much for watching my review of Revolution Radio. Don't forget to smash the like button on this video, subscribe to the channel, because friends don't let friends go unsubscribed, and if you would like to help support and grow ARTV, share it out with a fellow Green Day fan or somebody you think would enjoy this review. I'm going to be giving away a vinyl copy of Revolution Radio. All you have to do is share this video on Twitter and be following me at ARTV Reviews on Twitter with the hashtag GreenDayARTV. Use that hashtag. I will find you guys. You'll be entered to win, and I will pick a winner within the next week or two. Thank you so much for watching. If you would like to see my last Green Day review or all of my Green Day reviews, click those little annotations directly below me, or else the links are in the description down below if you're on mobile. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, everything like that as well. The social medias are in the description. Other than that, I will see you guys very soon right here on ARTV.